Hello and welcome back to Darren and Doing. I'm all Hester and I'm joined by the brilliant Ben Bowman. Ben, been a while.
We're back.
We are back.
We are so back. We are back, baby. Come on.
I mean, in hindsight, it's probably the biggest mistake we've ever made pausing the pod.
Yeah.
Because when we did it, it was pretty miserable. Yeah,
it was.
But a few things have sort of happened since our last pod.
The little matter of a Europa League win and a
first trophy in 17 years. Big Ange got a boot.
Just a few things. Yeah.
New manager. Yeah. Donna Cullen's been booted.
She's gone. Rumours of Levy going. The whole club has basically turned upside down in the time that we've stopped the podcast.
Yeah. No, literally. And
but you could argue that. Yeah, but you could argue that if we didn't stop it, that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, exactly.
If you believe in fate, maybe Darren and Doing had to take a pause for Spurs to win the Europa League.
Yeah, yeah.
What was the last pod we did?
Oh, well, I actually looked at it. It was like a Man City preview, and I don't even know the result of that game because I was so like.
Oh yeah.
Out. I mean, I know we lost, because I mean, anyone can tell you that, but I don't know where we were in the Europa League either because I remember doing.
I think it was around the Outmar game.
Mate,
I think
that was in January. Was Tell even? Because I remember doing we did the deadline day stream, and that was like Tell was signing. I actually watched a little bit of that today because I was getting.
Did you?
Pumped up for the return.
What, the deadline day stream?
Yeah,
mate, that was so funny.
It was so fun, and I mean, what we were saying how like Tell was going to be absolutely like transformative and stuff like that. I mean, we'll get into Tell later. But I mean, we'll get into it later. But we were saying how like our run to the Europa League final and all this stuff, and I was literally looking at you, brought a little tear to my eye, mate. If only we'd known. Actually, to be fair, you did know, mate. You called it last year.
I called it at the start, mate. I said we wouldn't. I said on Jaffin last year. I said the Europa League will be better for us than the Champions League, and in a roundabout way, that came true. We had to go through a lot of shit for it to come true, but it did come true. And the Europa League was better for us. It was better for those young kids, developing and growing. All the things I said came true, and we won the trophy. We did it. And now we've got a new manager, and we're going to buy some more players.
Yeah. And
rebuild the squad again.
Champions League,
come on! Someone who asked the question, was it Matt Sipolis who said, "Have you booked your hotel for Budapest?"
Gary
Hunter said it.
Yeah,
I actually have.
What?
I've got a hotel in Budapest for the Champions League final already.
Have you?
Yeah, yeah.
We will be there.
We will be there.
What do you reckon our chances are actually? I know
the Champions League. Is that how we're starting the pod? Are we?
Yeah. All right. What's your team for the Champions League final?
No, I'd probably say, Simmons and Eze probably behind Callum Mwendo.
Harry Kane.
Who scored? Kane come back. Yeah, we're activating the release clause in January because he knows he's got a shot to win the Champions League. Bayern have already been knocked out by that point in the league phase. They've come 24th or 25th. Like he's coming back. Yeah. Probably Vitinha in midfield alongside Bergvall, I reckon.
Yeah.
And then Doué out on the wing. RIP.
Yeah, maybe
RIP that fun now.
Yeah, we were literally saying because we were reminiscing, and we were talking about the summer last year, and Doué was literally in our hands, and
he was in the training ground, right?
And we made a thumbnail and everything. It was just fucking imagine.
Could you imagine?
Yeah. Oh,
instead we re-signed Timo Werner.
We would have come 10th.
It would have made all the difference.
Winning the trophy, then I want to go back because obviously there's so much stuff it's a bit hard this because there's so much to talk about.
Yeah,
but it's not irrelevant. It will never be. But it's there's so much recent news to sort of dive into. I kind of want to just get because I know you were there. I kind of want to just get your just a little reflection on the final, what you were doing. Obviously you're at a game, but that feeling of winning. And at the parade and all that, just how you felt, because for me, you have all these preconceived ideas of the feeling of finally winning a trophy, where every time you go on career mode and you'd be lifting that trophy with Son and just pumping your fist in the air and being like a dickhead because it's
at 3 in the morning after you've restarted the game 5 times.
Simmed it to the end because I can't beat the computer. But I mean, for me. It was, and I don't know, let me know as well if you felt the same in the comments, but I just sat back and just took deep breaths. I had 7 beers during the game. I was just sat with my dad, And because I was like, I just want to watch it with my dad, and because I can't control I couldn't watch it in a public place. I was too pent up, and I just sat back and I just took deep breaths, and I just I just couldn't believe it. It wasn't as euphoric as it was more of a prolonged bit of euphoria for that next week. Until now, I'm still buzzing off it. But in the moment, it was just relief. Like I could tick that off of the bucket list. Hopefully I'll see a few more. But you know what I mean. But for you're in the ground, so it must have just been like 10 times more special.
It was so stressful. Like I was kind of the same as you in a way. That like when the full-time whistle went, it was obviously like there was that hit of like euphoria, but at the same time, it was just kind of relief.
Yeah.
But because I've said it to this day. Since to this day. I mean, I happened like a few weeks ago, but like the few days after and the parade and that and the celebrations at the Brighton game, like after on Sunday once the season finished and stuff like that, and being in the pub before the game, that was so much more of a high than the final whistle. Like like the parade was unbelievable. Did you go to the parade?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was mate. It was so good. It was like because it was just like we'd all kind of had a couple of like I don't think it really hit me like in terms of processing the result and processing kind of what had happened until the morning after, like or the day after. Because the game was like the build up to the game was so good. Like I wasn't really I was quietly confident. I was quite like I was kind of keeping it together. Was able to like really enjoy the day in Bilbao in the fan zone, which was just class. Just getting like tanked up and then going to the game, and like during the game, it was obviously like the goal was amazing. Like that feeling of the goal, and because I thought we were playing okay in the first half as well. Like they had a couple of chances, but that like last 25 minutes was just horrendous, like absolutely horrible to go through. And I think that's why it was just more of a sense of relief at the end of the game, like when the final whistle went. And like, don't be wrong, like when you're with people that you've been going to Spurs with for like a long time and stuff, like I was with a couple of my mates, like my mate and his dad who I've been going with for ages, like now, and I was with Seb as well, who like managed to move, like he managed to get a ticket like quite last minute, and then he was meant to be like the neutral bit, and then just kind of came up and just stood with us. So like you're with people around you that you like, you know, your mates with and you care about and stuff like that, and then being with them for it was like absolutely class. But it was just kind of relief, and it was like I remember we went back to the fan zone like after the game because it was still open. It was like open till like 4 a.m. But they stopped serving alcohol at like I think it was like 2 maybe, and like we went back there, had a few beers, and like everyone was in a really good mood, but it was quite weirdly subdued because I think everyone was just so drained from the game and everything like that. And that's why the parade was so much more of like a party. Because it was like everyone was together, like people who couldn't go to the game and stuff like that as well. And it was like we've done it, like we've actually just done it. And it was like, and also building that, I think, bit like the connection. The parade was so important as well. Like I know Andrew's gone now, obviously, but like building that connection with those players and actually kind of looking them in the eye and being like, "You fucking done it! Like you've done it," and all that kind of stuff. And then like I was with my stepdad at the parade, who he couldn't come to Bilbao, so like I was with him. I wasn't there with him. That was class. It was like, but being out there was an amazing experience. But it was just kind of a sense of like I don't want to underplay it because like it was quality after the game, like when they were doing the trophy and coming around with it and all the songs were going on, and then partying in the streets of Bilbao to like early hours and whatever. Like it was amazing, but it was just a bit of almost like a bit of an adrenaline dump, and like almost like an adrenaline dump, but also just like that sense of relief of just like, no, we've actually done it now. We've done it. It's kind of also because you in those kind of moments as well, you're thinking about like the people can't say anything to us anymore. Like it's over. Like that kind of tag of like Spurs has been almost like ripped away. So those are the kind of things that you're thinking about it, and it is just a big relief, like big relief.
Yeah, and I mean that's 4 months. That's 4 weeks tomorrow. Like by the time that's like
I know it's crazy,
like
isn't it?
A month gone already, which is fucking mad. Considering how much has actually gone on. So let's get into Ange going. Actually, really quickly on that trophy. What I do think it's going to be so beneficial that season we just had in regards to the long-term project, because what our players, it's such a young squad for the most part, and what those players have learned is something that the Poch players never got to actually experience, and I think it will make them so much better, like for the long run. And they learn.
I'd agree with that.
They learn heavy loss, overcoming adversity, and winning a trophy. And that mentality of being like, okay, we're in a bit like bad bit of form. We know how to overcome this. We've done this as a family before, and it's all this sort of stuff that we can just use to our advantage in coming seasons with this like sort of long project that we've got going on. But yeah, with Ange going, I just want to say, because I know you've done your Ange like content on his sacking, and your heart was saying, yeah, just keep him, just see it out. But your head was just saying, it's probably the best thing that happened, because what I'm happy about is that he gets to go with his stock so high.
Yeah, his legacy's intact,
and he deserves that as a bloke, and his career and his trajectory and everything he's had to fight to get to where he was. His legacy is intact, like you say, and it's massive. Also, with like his reputation globally, and his affiliation with us as a club, he will always be affiliated. Where he could have been our worst ever manager if we didn't win that game. It was like on the balance of that game, his legacy worldwide in the football space and affiliation with Tottenham. And he gets to go out stocks high, head up high, mic drop, and on to the next thing. What I don't think he should come back to the Prem. I think he'll probably want to, but he should go whilst his stocks are high, because the pundits and that, they'll rip him apart as soon as he comes back, as soon as they can. Like any weaknesses, they'll try and exploit.
Or if he goes to another Premier League club that isn't Spurs, they'll absolutely love him again.
Yeah,
they will love him.
Yeah, maybe. I could
sort of see it kind of being the opposite.
Yeah,
but
that
I do
is true.
agree.
But I just think, like, if he can go to another league where he, like Ajax, everyone talks about Ajax, but it'd be so true, like where you just dominate that league and you just become like a cult hero around Europe, globally, and because of what he did, like in Australia, and I mean, a global sort of following for him would be amazing. Like, he gets to retire as a great manager. Whereas if he lost that, I mean, I don't know I don't know how we'd all feel about him. So he's just such a lovely bloke, and and also Saudi, like, if he can. I don't know if he'd want to, mate. Just go, like, generational wealth, and maybe bring like Sonny and
take some of our players. Everybody wins.
Yeah, exactly. But Frank coming in, so we're catching up now. I know you're buzzing with it. I'm buzzing with it.
Yeah, really happy.
I think he's perfect for us, because I think when you were looking at the other candidates out there, a lot of them you were thinking, Brennan Johnson's going to suffer. He doesn't fit us. Inzaghi, wing-backs. I can't see our wingers really getting Odebear, Moore. Where do they sort of fit into it? With Frank, I feel like it's such a perfect sort of balance through defence, midfield and attack. We've actually got a much better team than people give us credit for.
Oh, 100%,
we can kick on now with a few really good signings. And Frank's the sort of perfect manager to come in with who he knows how to get the best out of what he's got. But also, our team sort of sets up really nicely for what he has been doing or what he can. I mean, I know he's a very adaptive manager anyways, but I just think he is a great fit for these young group of players, and with the sort of system that he can get the best out of.
100%.
What do you think, like, what makes him such a great fit in your eyes?
I think it's not the most exciting, sexy thing in the world, but that pragmatism, I think. And I think when people hear the word pragmatism, they immediately think negative and defensive. And I think a lot of people, when we were first initially linked to Frank, kind of turned away from it because they were like, well, we don't really want to go from a really attacking manager to a manager that plays predominantly defensive football. It's like, one, that's not really true at Brentford, or certainly hasn't really been true this season. It's been true at times because he's had to adapt to the circumstances in which he finds himself in, taking Brentford up, playing some of the most aggressive attacking football in the Championship, to then having to adapt to actually survive. And it's been something that people have been so critical of with other managers for not doing, and that's why they've gone down playing good football to preserve their own reputation, whereas Frank realised what he needed to do to actually build Brentford to a point where they could play in a style that actually is more in keeping with his football ideology. Whereas if you've watched some of the and there's been so much Thomas Frank content to kind of gorge on that like people have made videos talking about how he might set up and what he brings, but like there's so many good interviews and stuff like that that he's done. The one where he goes around like Gary Lineker's house is kind of really interesting because he quite opens up about like the fact that he was like, I want to play attacking football. That's me, like, and it's just maybe that if I was to get the opportunity at another club, that's when you might see it like a little bit more. And obviously you saw it more with Brentford this season because they kind of reached a point of stability in the Premier League where they actually had more of a platform to consistently be able to be competitive in games, be aggressive in games, win games, score loads of goals. Like they scored more goals than us last season, and we were like one of the most open teams in the league. So, you know, and I think people kind of didn't see it as like what we needed at the time because it was like, well, there's no point sacking Ange unless we go and get like a top quality coach that's proven. But it's like, there's not many of those coaches out there when actually I think what Frank is a bit of a stabiliser, and people are going to think that's a bit boring because Ange was such a charismatic guy who wanted to win in the kind of the right way, like the Tottenham way.
Yeah.
Like, and I loved that. I loved him for that. Yeah. And I would never want to win more with another manager, almost kind of, other than Poch, like recently during my life. I'd love to play winning that way. Like, sorry, someone's just ringing me. Win consistently playing kind of in that manner. But Frank coming in, I think you're going to see, the thing that I'm excited for is that obviously Spurs are going to bring in other players this summer. He's going to have his eye on players that he can bring with him, whether that's, or say bring in for him to work under him, whether that is someone like an Bowman or someone from Brentford, or whether it's other players in the Premier League, or whether it's younger players to kind of continue in the vein of recruitment that we've been in over the last sort of season and a half, which is bringing in these kind of young gems and trying to model them in, or trying to grow them here. And I think there's a balance to be struck. I think we should carry on doing that while also bringing in some proven quality. But the thing I'm most excited about is him improving the players that are already here, because he's so good at play. And this is the thing where I think Ange suffered, is that Ange wasn't necessarily the best profiler of players, like playing players as touchline wingers that didn't necessarily suit. Obviously, you could flip that the other way and say there were some examples of him getting the best out of certain players, like revolutionising Becky's role at Spurs, for example, playing him more central, getting the best out of him that way. So there's both sides of it. But when you look at his track record of profiling players correctly at Brentford to get the best out of them and then improving them substantially season after season off the back of that, that's what I'm really excited about. And also I'm excited to have a midfield that doesn't get run through. Yeah. like he's obviously, like you said, I think the exciting thing about Frank is that, coming to Tottenham, is that we don't actually know how he's going to play. But if you were to look at his most recent example of how he did set up at Brentford, that would actually translate really nicely to Tottenham. So there is a basis there of what we can kind of have in our minds of what he might work off of what he's done before, but also there's that excitement of thinking, actually, he might have something up his sleeve that, looking at that group of players, that actually I can kind of do something that people don't necessarily expect, or I don't know. I think he's just, and also what I said in a video that I posted on TikTok that I then posted on Twitter the other day, that I think people kind of see it as almost like ripping up and starting again. It's the start of another new project. I don't see it like that at all, to be honest. I think Frank is the perfect next guy to take over from Ange. I really think he is. Mm-hmm. And I've been very critical of the board, especially like this season, but I think they've got it bang on. And I think as much as I think Levy needs to be ousted from his position, we kind of need to move on from him as a football club. I think some of the criticism that was actually labelled at him was quite unfair, because I think the easy thing for Levy to do was to keep Ange. Yeah. And he's not done that. He sacked him. I know Levy loves sacking managers. Obviously, he's got a track record of sacking managers, and people will get into that. But I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about having that kind of bit of stability. Another thing that I'm kind of excited for as well is that emphasis on marginal gains. And that's not the most sexy thing in the world, but again, like throw-ins, corners, like much more attention to detail with stuff like that. Of just like things that are going to win Tottenham games of football. And I think people got so caught up, I think, and I understand it because it was such an emotional thing winning that trophy, and there was such an emotional attachment from people to Ange. But like, I think people almost got a little bit caught up too much to the point where it was like, Levy sacking Ange was a signal that winning trophies doesn't matter or isn't enough to save your job. And I understand why people would have that viewpoint, but if you want to be a top club that gets to a point of actually winning trophies on a consistent basis and challenging for those top honours on a consistent basis, your base has to be to win more games of football in the Premier League. That's how you get back into the Champions League. That's how you can try and win the Champions League. That's how you can try and win the Premier League. Like, look at Arsenal. They've made themselves harder to beat, focused on marginal gains, had a good balance of physicality and technical quality. And I know they've not got over the line yet, but there's a bit of luck that comes with that as well. Look at Tottenham under Pochettino, another good example. Like, sometimes you are just a bit unlucky. We're our own worst enemies in the sense that we didn't build on top of that. But that's how you build a base to challenge for those things. Yeah. Winning the Europa League wasn't a signal that Spurs could consistently win stuff under Ange, in my opinion. It was an amazing thing to do. But if you want to win those things on a more consistent basis, I think we had to make the change and bring in someone who is more of a pragmatist, but also wants to win games and wants to be aggressive and do the things that we expect from a Tottenham manager, like that we've fallen in love with, like Poch and Postecoglou, by being attacking. So that's kind of I'm really excited. I'm really excited.
Last year was an absolute gamble. It's like your dad puts the house on like a football bet or whatever.
Yeah, we've put it all on black, basically.
Pray for everyone's sake that it comes through. Yeah. And if it don't, absolute depression and everything's got to go. Selling, everything's got to go. If we don't, we could buy a better house. Do you know what I mean? It's like it was like that, but that's not sustainable, isn't it? And the thing is, it's like a little bit like. I do see the resemblance between Eddie Howe's appointment at Newcastle. It's like it's not sexy, but that balance and sustainability is what you need. It is what you need. And
100%.
If you run a proper, like, if you want to run in a smart way, sustainability across the league and having that balance it will go far. And it is that what you're saying, that sort of that foundation to then kick on. And the thing is, with Eddie Howe, like, again, it wasn't sexy at all. They're getting Champions League football. They won a trophy. Do you know what I mean? And they've built on that. So I'm just really excited. And the fact as well that he was our first choice. He was our only real choice. The Marco Silva stuff really looked like it was agent led. The Zerbi was apparently like Paratici sort of just putting his word in. It was like, but Frank, he's just sort of he is just that steady Eddie that this team needs. When last year was just such an anomaly.
Especially especially when you go into the games as well, it was so like. Don't get me wrong, the payoff of winning the trophy was 100% worth it.
Yeah.
But I can't go through that again. Of just like turning up and getting battered every week and paying that money to do that, sitting in that stadium that was meant to take us to the next level, getting beat by Leicester, getting beat by Palace. Again, there were circumstances towards the end of the season. I didn't give a shit. I was just like, all the eggs are in the basket now. Once we got to like end of April, May, I was like, we're in a final. I don't care now. But I've cared for the last few months, and I cared at Wolves. I said Anne should have been sacked after Wolves. Like, and maybe that in hindsight that was the wrong thing, but like it got so bleak.
Yeah, toxic.
And I think Frank is just that stabiliser, but I think he can be more than that. I really think he can be more than that. And I think there's a lot of people that are kind of doubting different things about. Well, he's got no European pedigree. He's never managed a game in Europe before. He's never won the thing. It's like, neither had Poch. Yeah. Like, Poch had never managed a game in Europe for Southampton. It's kind of hopefully it goes the same way as that in terms of that progression and or building a young squad that you can really develop and improve consistently.
Yeah.
And change as well. That's what Poch was good at. He was kind of good at tinkering different formations and systems and that kind of thing. Got a bit stale, obviously, towards the end, but all projects are going to do that at some point. But that's what we need. We need that again, but hopefully with the added success of winning stuff on top of it. That would be nice.
First choice. The only thing, and it looked professional how we sort of just went about it. And I mean, I know that delay, that silence was fucking shit, but
it was really frustrating.
It was really just trying to wait until all the sort of that party and sort of died down, and it was so. And that's the thing, we've always hated the lack of communication from the club. But I think ultimately the right decision was made. But does Frank even know he's the fucking manager? We haven't heard anything from him. Like,
I thought it was going to be like today or yesterday.
What? I'm the Tottenham manager?
He's still playing in pre-season for Brentford. He's like, he's like, where are all my coaches going? What's happening? Who's like Justin Cochrane's gone? What is what is going on here? I thought again,
that's another thing. The staff is so important,
and that was why it was important, and that you can understand the delay from that point of view. If that's the manager, because I heard through the ITK grapevine that basically, when was it? I'm trying to work the dates back. The first time I heard Frank was in talks with Tottenham was the day before the Champions League final, and that was a week after the season had ended. So I heard it then that Spurs had basically agreed for him to become, like, it was done from Frank's side and Tottenham's side. It was just a case of formalising the interest with the club. And then it wasn't until a week later that we then sacked Ange. Like, I've known this has been going on for ages. Like, they've wanted Frank basically as soon as the season was done, pretty much. It was just a kind of... There was rumours in the media that they were still kind of weighing it up, but it definitely sounded like he was done. And it was almost just waiting for him to maybe get back off holiday to do it. And that's why the frustration was quite... Sorry, that's why the silence was quite frustrating, because it was like, I think we know what's happening here. Like, and then it started to break about Frank over the kind of couple of days after that, which is when I first like heard it, and it was like, yeah, it's been a long wait. But again, if you're going to make a change this big, well, it's not even this big, to be honest, because like I said, I think it's a really nice progression from Postecoglou. But obviously, it's a big thing to sack your manager and then go and get another manager from another Premier League club. It's a big process. You want to make sure you do it with all the right people. And if it takes its time, it takes its time. As long as it doesn't eat into... Because the last thing we wanted was like... Bear in mind, there was these whispers of like Paratici coming back. The last time like he led a managerial search, it was like a circus. And I think that was the anxiety like in the back of my mind of like, I don't want this again. Like, I don't want to... That's why I want clarity. I don't want to get into pre-season or like before pre-season. The players have just come back and we don't know who our manager's going to be, or they've only just come through the door. Like, if we're going to do it, sack him now, or sack him or back him, like, do it now. And that's why it was really frustrating. But we've got the right man and we've got the right people around him, I think, as well, which is really important. Yeah. Interestingly, no word from Levy on the old statement, was there, about Frank? No word from Levy on the statement from Postecoglou.
He's going, mate.
Yeah.
I have it on good authority. Massimiliano Allegri.
Allegri's coming. Who? Allegri. Massimiliano Allegri. He's coming.
That stuff is bollocks though about Levy, surely. I've sort of... I haven't really paid... It's there's no point in getting into it. Because
the thing is, there's no smoke without fire, but like... I wouldn't be surprised if Levy's not at Spurs within the next like year, but I don't...
It wouldn't happen overnight.
I think there's rumblings in the background about money coming in and takeovers and what, but who knows? It's not worth getting into it until we actually know something concrete. Like, who bloody knows? Yeah,
and we know now. We've got clarity who our manager is, and we can like go forward. And this is where the excitement and the anticipation comes back, because pre-season's only like 3 weeks away, which is fucking
the players will be back. The players will be back.
Yeah, that is mental.
So it's a couple of weeks, 2 for each.
So we got a few questions. The Spurs boy starts off saying, who do you think isn't going to do well under Frank? By the way, everyone, thanks so much for getting your questions in.
Oh, yeah, it's been class tonight.
During this break, we've had some like amazing messages, and people want to know like when we're coming back. So honestly, it's been like the community we built is incredible, and it doesn't go like unnoticed. So thank you, everyone. But I'll expand on that question. Who are your winners and who are your losers for the Frank squad? Should we go through the squad? Should we just go through the players we've got at the moment? Obviously, starting with Vicario, there's been a little bit of discourse. I mean, we're not going to fucking sell him.
Nah,
but,
I can't see that.
I mean, that's just like paper talk. But there's been murmurs that he wouldn't be the ideal Frank goalkeeper, and actually Kinski better suits. But actually, wouldn't Kinski better suited? I mean, we were getting peppered every single game, so maybe Vicario did actually in the end suit it. But Kinski, that ball playing profile is needed now in football generally. But I think Vicario is he surpasses that with his leadership and his presence.
100%.
And he's a great shot stopper, and he's limited with his feet, but he's a very important part of our team.
Yeah.
At the moment, and maybe in a couple of years, it's just not a priority for me.
No, I agree. I agree. Like, I do see at some point down the line Kinski potentially usurping him, and I think the only way that's going to happen is if Kinski gets a run of games, and like he's obviously a very confident kid. You saw that in that first game against Liverpool. You saw that as well in the game at Villa Park in the FA Cup that he bounced back in. Like he should have saved that first goal from Rodgers or Ramsey, I think it was. But then the way he bounced back after that, making the saves, his distribution is very good. I think a lot of people are kind of, again, looking at the way Frank has played at Brentford and at times they've been more direct, but also like this season again, they have been playing out from the back a lot more as well with like Collins and not so much necessarily with the goalkeeper, but like they have been drawing teams onto them and playing through the thirds. But again, Kinski, I think I understand why people are kind of saying it, because Kinski gives you that balance of being able to be calm under pressure with the ball at his feet if teams are pressing, but also his long-range distribution is phenomenal, like really good. And I'd be interested to see them battle it out in pre-season, but I still think Vicario is going to be that keeper on the first game. It might, who knows, over the course of the season, Kinski, because I think one thing Frank will do is in the cup competitions and that rotate, and like, he's always kind of done that at Brentford, but again, there's not been the pressure to win those things at Brentford. And I'm sure we're probably going to talk about, I think someone asked a question about expectations, and it's hard to judge that right now, but I think they'll both probably win out of it in a way. I think they'll both be, neither of them are getting sold. Like they're not getting sold.
There's no rush with Kinski. There's no rush.
And also, I want to see Kinski in pre-season 100%. It's nice to actually have a backup goalkeeper now that, like, I love Fraser Forster, but like he had to go blood. Like, quite simple. He had to go blood. But it's nice having a backup goalkeeper now you feel like can actually put pressure on. And obviously Brandon Austin did well when he came in for Hoffenheim and Newcastle last season, but he was never going to be the backup goalie. Whereas Kinski, it feels like, okay, now we've actually got a goalkeeper that can push Vicario. So I'm intrigued to see how it plays out. But I think they'll both be fine. I think.
Yeah. Fullbacks: Pedro, Porro, Spence, Doggy. They're all winners, right?
I think they're all big winners from this, to be honest.
Massively.
I think we love Porro. I think those, like, his crossing ability, like. And again, kind of playing more in the wide areas, not inverting as much. I think he's going to love Porro. Like,
he'll love Spence. Like, I know we take the piss and stuff, but he actually he does talk quite a lot of like knowledge. Like Inverted Wing was talking about how he loves Spence. It's very true. It is very true. That physical presence who can hold the whip.
Also on the right and the left. I think Spence again. He actually played better on the left. I think for the most part, to be honest. Like last season when he did play, and I think you think about how Frank used, and again, this is just kind of presuming that if you plug and play Frank's 4-2-3-1 Brentford setup into Tottenham for next season, Keane Lewis-Potter played at left-back as a right-footed player who was quite often like hugging the width but then driving inside from there, driving forward, and Spencer's very good at that. So I think all the fullbacks win, to be honest, out of it, especially Porro for me.
I also think, especially if we're playing in games where we want to be a little bit more pragmatic, because he's not the best box defender. I also think where that lopsided fullbacks that he has like played at Brentford comes in. I think Van der Ven could do a really good job. As a left back,
almost like an elbow back four. Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying like he'll start. I'm just saying in certain games we could benefit. Or unless we play a back five.
Massively. This is what we were calling for under Ange, wasn't it? And Ange did do it at one point, didn't he? Was it the Man City game, the famous Man City game? He played Van der Ven at left back with Romero and Dragusin.
Yeah.
And it was almost like...
Then did it against Burnley where he scored that goal. That was like late in the game. And then he got his hamstring against City in the Carabao Cup playing left back.
Oh yeah, he did play left back that day, didn't he? Yeah. So it's like that elbow, because he's such a good wide... Van der Ven, it's like... Could you ask for someone better to kind of defend, like, obviously like Van Dijk and Konate, but like defending wide channels, and then also the freedom that then does give to someone like Porro, as well. Because Brentford did that a lot, like especially towards the end of the season, like Coyote when he was playing at right back, like he used to bomb on quite a lot. Vandenberg is like a natural, can play right back but right centre half, so he like would then tuck in, and then Keane Lewis-Potter would go. It's kind of how Mourinho set up with his fullbacks at Tottenham, wasn't it? It was like
Davis and Aurier.
Yeah, a little bit of an elbow kind of thing. Or like when Reguilon would play, like Aurier would tuck in and he would go. So I think that's quite exciting. I think all of the fullback profiles that we've got really suit that. But I also think it's why I think we need another left-sided defender, and preferably someone that can play that sort of hybrid role, because I think Frank will probably do that at times.
Yeah. And be able to start as well, even if you're playing next to Van der Ven. I do think, like, if say Van der Ven is put into that sort of like reserved left back role, having someone who's established next to him will be like massive, especially in Champions League games. Say we're up against a tricky winger or something like that. I just think it will go so far. But I think the centre backs are interesting, because I think Luka Vuskovic, I think he would have needed loans and loans. Until Ange was gone, because I just don't see him working in the Ange system. But
it would put so much pressure on him.
Yeah, he would, mate, and he'd like get about 3 ACL injuries as well. Trying to run back, I do think that him, say we like we sort of put out back three, and he plays in the middle between Van de Ven and Romero, where he has that sort of that solidity around him. I do think it'll be that. I mean, I just think he's a young player. I think he's such a great prospect that I do think he should maybe just have a year seeing how he gets on, and then in January, if he's not
here,
getting
as in like here.
Yeah, and then
I would
in
agree
January, I know we're having pre-season. We'll see how he gets on but he's so good. He'll thrive in pre-season. I think I'd be shocked if he didn't have a good pre-season. So I think just see how he gets on, and then and then assess it again in January. Maybe he just goes out on loan in January if he's not getting the numbers he needs and he just needs game time. But again, he fits that, especially from set pieces and stuff. He fits that Frank mould of a centre backs, and then same with Danso. Dragusin's not going to play this season until around January.
It's interesting with him because I saw he's like back in the gym and like running and stuff, but I don't know. I mean, best case ACL is 6 months, right? And he did it at the end of January. So best case he's kind of due back soon, but I still don't think he'll be playing. If he plays in pre-season, I'd be surprised, and it'll be like towards the end of pre-season. But I still think, like you said, I think the season could be started by the time we actually see him. So that's a window of opportunity for Vuskovic, isn't it? But I also with Dragusin, like. One thing I've never questioned is Dragusin's mentality and his heart, and I actually think Vuskovic coming in and the talk of Romero potentially going, he's going to be aware of that, and that actually might, and the fact that we signed Kevin Danso as well on a permanent, that might actually push Dragusin quite a bit to be like, I need to get back in the team here, like I need to, and again, like Dragusin, this is the thing, like, we've all kind of spoken about Frank and his ability to improve, and Bwemo, Sharda, Watkins, Mope. And I think I already said in Bowman, I don't know. Damsgaard, Tony, Visser, like his track record of improving attackers is absolutely outstanding in the Championship and in the Premier League. But again, Nathan Collins was someone that I thought was an absolute fucking donkey, like an absolute donkey. When he was at Wolves, there was a bit of hype around him, and I was like, okay, I'm intrigued, but I never really saw it. First couple of seasons, I think at Brentford, he was giving away goals, really sloppy, like getting caught playing out, just didn't look good at all, looked really clunky. And this season, he's been phenomenal for them for the most part. And again, if you're thinking about Collins is actually better at playing out the back better playing out from the back than people give him credit for. And that's something I didn't really pay much attention to until kind of doing a bit more research. Quite good at breaking lines. He is the progressor in that back four. So that does bode well for Romero. It's not, Romero, if Romero does stay, he will be the one that steps up and does a lot of what he did last season. Yeah. But also Collins, I think he won the most aerial duels in the Premier League last season and the second most amount of blocks. So again, both sides of the game for him are really intact. Like and that's why I look at Vuskovic as someone who can, what Collins does a lot of the time to break the lines for Brentford. He's good with little nippy passes around the corner to progress through to the midfield, and also having a double pivot in front of him helps open up the pitch because they can then drag two players with them, and he can find pockets to pass little balls around corners and get through that way, whether it's to the fullback or a diagonal switch if more space opens up or whatever. But me and Kish were saying this actually in the group chat like a couple of weeks ago or last week when there was a bit of a rumour about Collins, and it was like, I don't necessarily think we should buy him as a Romero replacement, but I think if you could get someone like him in for Dragusin maybe, I think it could work. But one thing we were talking about is that, and one thing to kind of translate how Vuskovic can kind of become the Collins at Brentford, and that might not be the most sexy thing in the world, but in terms of that role, is one, Vuskovic is phenomenal in the air, like freakish physicality. Yeah. But also what he does quite well, he's good passing out from the back, and Collins does this a lot. It's quite Dyer-like. When Dyer was at his best for Tottenham, either playing in a back three or like in midfield, he'd break the press a bit like Maguire. Again, doesn't sound the sexiest thing, but Maguire would run through the press. He was quite good at that. Collins does that quite well as well, like being able to shield the ball and go. Vuskovic is a bit of a freak, like physically. Again, 6'4", strong, good at carrying the ball, breaking the lines just by stepping up and going round a player. Like it's like that's something that quite excites me about Vuskovic, being that kind of Collins type player for us.
I do, and maybe, I mean, he just has that power, and the same with Van de Ven. Danso and Van de Ven can do that to an extent as well.
Danso's really good at that. Danso's really good at that as well. He's just got that
power to just drive forward, and
that was one thing that stood out when we signed from Lons. When I was like doing a video, kind of researching into a bit more, it was like he's not bad playing out from the back, but he breaks the press by driving through.
Yeah.
And Van de Ven is, again, like, okay, you want to come near me? I'm just going to go around you. See you later. Like, again, so we've got good defenders for that, for sure.
Yeah. So it's just, and that, I mean, you want an amalgamation of defenders that have different sort of assets that can contribute to the game plan. So, like Romero being able to just break the lines through with passes and intricate passing, and then you've got players that are just going to steamroll the press. I mean, like that, it becomes more unpredictable.
Yeah.
But with Dragusin, like I've written him off personally, but I kind of want to just see him have one more chance. He's young, and again, you're saying with his mentality, and I just think he was playing in the most difficult defence in the league. I mean, we were just getting absolutely opened up and penetrated left, right, and centre. So anyone's going to look bad in that. It actually takes absolute like unicorns of centre backs like Romero and Van de Ven to make it look relatively okay. And even then, it was like a bit cagey at times. So I'd like to see him in like in the future. We're getting like some statements from Levy, I think, coming through about we can get into later.
Really?
I don't think it's like breaking news. It's just he's actually finally coming out and communicating.
They've done an interview. Yeah, they've done a Vinay Venkateshman Levy have done a.
Oh, okay. Well, we can get into that. We can see. Maybe we'll reassess that and come back in a future pod.
Yeah.
There's so much to get into, but with the midfield, I think quickly, obviously, Gray was wanted by Frank.
Yeah.
And he's thinking about double pivots. I do think we're going to talk about transfer window in a sec, but Maddison with quality. We saw how he utilised Damsgaard.
And also that's why I'm quite excited. Like, what we were talking about there about the back four, about that ability to kind of Maddison having a stable double pivot behind him, if that's how we do play, frees him up so much more. But again, if you're able to progress through the lines quickly and like having that midfield double pivot to draw those players on, leave Maddison in that kind of pocket of space. If you can play around that, and then Maddison's just doing what he does best, picking the ball up in the centre of the pitch and running at the goal. And when he's got runners in front of him, they're backing off because they're worried about the runners. He can get shots off. It's like I quite enjoyed Maddison in the 8 under Ange. I think his passing and stuff in the first kind of phase of build-up and his ability to knit play together and drop in a little bit deeper is actually really underrated, and he was good at it for Spurs. But deep down, we all want Maddison in the 10, getting shots off, curling it in the top corner, creating things, slip it, like in that Damsgaard kind of role, in the Ericsson role for Spurs, in the Maddison role at Leicester. That's what we all want. So I'd agree.
The midfield, I do think we've got like a hub of midfielders that are really good for the double pivot as well, because we were constantly saying this. These players aren't lone sixes, so you're going to get their vulnerabilities exploited, like Bentancur, Sarr, Bissouma. I do think Bissouma will probably move on eventually, but Bentancur, Sarr, Bergvall, Gray in a double pivot works a lot better. I want to save Kulusevski for the end, because I think he's a very interesting like player in this, like going forward. But Tell, he's obviously signed on the permanent.
Yep. I'm excited about that, by the way.
I'm really excited about that, and the thing about the wingers, and the same with Odobert, Moore, Tell, Brennan Johnson.
Yeah.
Kulusevski.
Again, Brennan Johnson was another player that he wanted. He
was desperate for. These players, all of a sudden, like, I've got a much more simple sort of, not simple game, but you're getting the best out of their abilities if we're going to see what we saw with Mbuemo, Sharda. Because they're playing, they can invert more centrally. They've got the freedom to do so. They've got a lot more freedom to sort of just like interchange with the fullback bombing on. And they're not going to be pinned out to the wing. And actually, I do think it's the best time to sell Son. We're going to get to Son just in a bit. But again, Son a couple of years ago would have been perfect for this role as well. I just think it's time to move on. But
I agree.
I actually think our wingers are a lot better than people are making out to be, just because we were so desperate for the specific six, the specific winger under Postecoglou, that now it's like, well, actually, if you look at our team, our wingers are actually not that bad. If you're looking at like a group of wingers to get you through a season, it's just whether or not they fitted that. And again, we do definitely need another sort of attacking reinforcement. But with Kulusevski, what I think is so interesting is that, and I think it will play a role in the transfer window, is whether Frank sees him as a predominantly as a right winger or an attacking midfielder, because I'm just going to say it. I don't think we're going to get Mbeumo. I don't think we're going to get Semenyo. And actually, you're looking at a right winger and you're thinking, we need game changers. We don't need another, like, I know he's amazing. I love him. I think he'll actually do really, really well under Frank. But we don't need another Odebear signing. We need a game changer to come in on the right-hand side if we are. Do we just say, Kulusevski, Johnson, you're going to be playing, you can invert more centrally. You're going to get the best out of Europe. You're going to get a system that suits your abilities more. You to battle it out for the right-hand side, and then you sign an Eze or a Simmons to sort of battle it out with Maddison. Because I personally think if that's the case, I think that's better for us in the fact that I think there's a hybrid winger, left winger and attacking midfielder that's out there. That there's a lot of players that fit that can be really, really good in that sort of versatile attacking role. Eze, Simmons, and Dye. That type of player that can come in and be like, well, he could start left next to Maddison and Kulusevski or Johnson, or he can come in if Maddison's injured or needs a break. I was going to say,
bear in mind, I love Maddison, but he's kind of made of glass a bit, isn't he? So
and versatility is going to be massive for the Champions League. I mean, you need to be putting out as strong a team midweek as the weekend. So versatile players are going to be so important. And I'm just looking at that right hand side, and I'm looking at the market, and I'm thinking, there's not a game changer out there. I mean, that you'd be like, okay, I'm putting all my money on him and he's going to take us to the next level.
Yeah.
That attacking midfielder or left-hand side, especially if you just sign Tell permanently and you've got Odebear, who I think will be really good, like under Frank, and more, who knows about Mikey Moore. But if you haven't someone that can play out on the left, a little bit like how Kulusevski can play out on the right and in the 10, all of a sudden I think we can then wait another year and see if there will be a game changer that emerges, because there always is, like Due or something like that. How they came out of nothing, and then go out and sign them when the time's right. I just don't think we need to rush into that if it's not on the market.
How do you feel about the whole? Because I'm with you. I don't think we'll get Mbeumo. I think they'll probably try.
Yeah,
but I think it's just, and I wouldn't mind it. I mean, at the end of the day, your son, the Premier. I would be happy with it 100%. How do you feel about Semenyo? Because it feels like that's the if they can't get Mbeumo, they'll push hard. But again, Bournemouth don't need to. If they're getting pulled from, if they're getting pillaged for their defence, like, they're going to demand silly money for Semenyo that I'm not sure Spurs would pay. I'm not sure Spurs should pay.
I think it's a bit of like a Fugazi don't like really exist sort of thing. Because I think when you're looking at Bournemouth, they don't need to sell.
No.
He's contracted. He'll be so expensive.
Yeah. And especially if they lose the Barnier as well.
Yeah, and I think it's a bit like no one knows what Langer's doing, really. So it's like, well, Semenyo must be a target. It's the same with Man United. Like, Man United aren't linked with Semenyo, but Sky Sports keep saying that they're linked with Semenyo.
Yeah.
It's like he's just. I don't know whether it's. I just can't see it happening because he's so expensive. They've got such a negotiating power, Bournemouth, because they've sold their whole team. They got all the money in the world. Like, they don't need to sell another player.
Yeah.
So I don't see it, and I can see it being a bit like an Eze last year, where like, who are we going to sign? Is it going to be Neto or Eze? Is it going to be Mbeumo or Semenyo? And then we end up with neither, and we just buy someone that comes out of nowhere. So I'm trying, but he would be good as well because he can play left and right. And I really like him, and I like his physical presence as well, and I think he would suit, like, coming in and gate crash, box crashing, and like smashing the ball in the back of the net, or like
driving with the ball into the penalty area as well. Like, he
would be good.
He's a good dribbler on both feet. He's a good shooter on both feet. I think he can become a little bit scattergun at times. Like, I think towards the end of the season where things started to not go so well for Bournemouth, or like during that kind of bit of a period where they had a bit of a downturn, like, he could be, like, when I was watching him, I was like, you're a little bit frustrating, but from what I've seen for the first half of the season and for last season as well, he's always a player that I have liked. He's just powerful, strong, good shooter. Like, and again, you can kind of see him, you know. And Mbeumo is definitely more of a final action kind of player. He's a good crosser. He's good at taking his man on. But maybe Spurs need to take a bit more than that. But I'm still like, I think people are sort of saying about how it doesn't make sense, because I think, again, people are thinking about how Frank might play, but I still think if you're offering me those three players for around a similar price, I'm still taking Eze every day of the week.
Yeah, I think there's just something about Eze, Simmons. You know when we're playing like Champions League
or Simmons, yeah.
You have
Simmons.
those like Mavericks that like that come alive on the biggest stages.
Look at what Eze was doing. FA Cup final, FA Cup semi-final, FA Cup quarter-final. He actually didn't have the best, most consistent league season, even though his numbers were really good. Yeah. But in those big moments, he turned up like, man, he's the man. Like, I love him.
And you know how like Mbeumo was, he'd link up well on the flank, he'd work hard, and then when he would, he's not a 1v1 specialist. He's got that sort of Salah like getting it at your feet, shoot or cross it or
He's kind of Salah light a bit, isn't he?
Yeah, but Kulusevski can. He's not a 1v1 dribbler, but he could just get it out onto his left foot,
and also
he could if you're stretching out with the fullback, he could then like almost disguise a pass back out wide, and like same with Johnson, like they're going to be inverting more centrally. I kind of want to just see. I know it doesn't sound as sort of glamorous because of what we saw under Ange, but the system didn't suit a lot of our players. Yeah, and we needed specialists. Whereas you're bringing in the best out of these players and in the system. So I think it's not as big of a deal as it was a month ago with the right wing position. I really don't, and I think maybe just someone that comes in and just covers for Maddison, that left hand side with Tell. Who knows what's happening with Son? We'll get into that, and then
also he might use Johnson because I was working back. Sorry to interrupt. I was working back, like thinking about this in my head the other day, about when Brentford were trying to sign Brennan Johnson. They'd already signed Sharda that summer. They'd already had Mbeumo. Tony was obviously banned. They obviously already had Visser. So I was thinking, I was trying to work out in my head if they were going to break their transfer record for Johnson, or they wanted to, how they were actually going to use him. Yeah, because they'd already bought Sharda that summer and had Visser and Mbeumo already there, and Tony there but banned. I was like, and that's what excites me as well. It's like, where's he going to play Johnson? Could he use Johnson in more of a backup striker role potentially as well? Like, I know there's obviously been the links to Kalimuendo, but as a versatile kind of forward across that front three, playing him in a two up front with Solanke kind of dropping deep and spinning in behind and playing someone like Johnson through. Johnson on the left is something we saw like early days under Ange as well, which is when you're putting him out on the touchline, I don't think that suits him. But again, if you've got a fullback that's staying higher outside of him, Johnson making those runs in the channel on the left-hand side then becomes, again, it's like Kulusevski, right? When I made a video about how I think Spurs might set up under Frank, again, that was kind of doing what we're all doing, of thinking of the most recent Brentford and thinking, how does that then just apply to Tottenham, right? And that meant that I kind of didn't really speak about Kulusevski that much because I was in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, does that really suit him in the Mbeumo kind of role because of the lack of pace and those kind of things? But again, you got a manager that's coming in that is going to look at all these players and think, you are really good. Like Kulusevski, you are really good. I saw it last season. Maddison, you're really good. Tell, I can't wait to get my hands on you. You are really good. How can we platform and profile you better to get the best out of you? He's going to do that with all of these players. So actually, when you think about it, it's like, okay, Kulusevski, can he do what Mbeumo can do? No, but he can do so much more than that and so many other different things. So Frank's going to look at him and think, you're too valuable to the squad not to use you. How do we get the best out of you, and how do we balance it in the front three? Like, I'm just excited to kind of see it all kind of come to. Pre-season is so exciting because obviously we definitely need to improve that squad. We need to bring in quality in that squad in that final third. I'm happy for us to sign another winger. Like, I'd be gassed if we signed Mbeumo. I'd be happy with Semenyo as well. I'm not sure about the money, but I think these are the kind of deals, unfortunately, you have to do if you want to improve that squad. I'm really happy to spend the money on Eze. There's still been talk in the background of like Spurs, this is the summer they want to get it done. There's been groundwork that's been done, all that kind of stuff. Like, that's still the one for me. Even if it doesn't make sense necessarily profile-wise. But again, we don't know how Frank's going to play, so it's like...
So fucking...
It's the most ambitious one, I think, as well.
Lily White, do you know what I mean?
It makes too much sense. Like,
written in the stars. Yeah. Would be unbelievable.
Yeah. What about... how do you feel about your man, Kalimuendo from Rennes? I'm just going to shut my door quickly. Mate. You talk and I'll shut my door.
What I will say, no worries, mate. What I will say is that he looks like an Aguero regen. He's sort of that stocky striker build, like from the sort of like weighted, lower end weighted, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's quick, and I've watched a 12-minute highlight compilation of him on Brazil Scout, and I didn't hear about him 24 hours ago.
Yeah, it's like one of the classic. I think Billy T tweeted it was like, "I've never heard of this bloke, but now if we don't sign him, our summer's going to be over." It's literally like that, isn't it?
Also, as well, as like I'm a bit sceptical because there's been one source saying it, and literally no one else has like reported on it at all, and it's like. I'm waiting. I saw that dopamine came in. It was like, you know how Odebear came out of the blue. It was like Spurs are about to accelerate. No, we signed him, but like that we're under Langer. That sort of happens. It's like Spurs are about to trigger the deal to sign this player, and then we get so excited, and then all the other reports come in. It was that dopamine last night of, oh, who is this? And looking him up, everyone looks like showing his goals he's been scoring, and then it's been like, well, actually, no one else is coming up with this report, but
yeah,
it does sort of segue into the window and what you expect from the window, because obviously we signed Tell, and again, there's been so much on Tell. You've done a video on Tell. I think that's really good. I think Frank will get the best out of him because I think as a winger striker hybrid, he's just such a valuable player. He's very raw, but I think he, again, Frank improves players. He was originally
top mentality
a player.
As well.
Top mentality. He's already settled. He was originally a player. Frank was originally a coach to utilise to get the best out of talent.
Yeah, that was talent development. He did it for like 20 years, didn't he?
Yeah. So he's the perfect manager for these sort of players. He's a coach. He's actually a coach. Sorry, I thought of a point. It's not relevant at all.
No, go on.
Another thing about Frank is that like he's the perfect man to take over Ange because he's that personality. He's a personality, and again, and I heard on The Athletic as well, with like Tony, where when Tony was coming back, he had 1-to-1 coaching sessions with Frank.
Yeah.
And it's like these players, if he does do that with more players, I don't know, but how good will they become with actual 1-to-1 detailed small margin gains and getting the best out of their own personal sort of potential. So with the transfer window, Callum Muendu is a player that does make sense because we're waiting for more sort of reports on it. But I think we need a game-changing attacker, versatile attacker. I do think that's not a striker. Maybe they can play striker, but I think we need a game-changing midfielder.
Yeah,
and I think we need to be smart because I trust our recruitment with who we've been getting. Be smart with a backup left centre back who can play left back if need be, and a striker like Callum Muendu, sort of someone who is a different profile that can still be utilised in the system.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way we need to go. But we need to be brave. And I'm still I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm still just holding out for a Baleba, Wharton. Now we've got Champions League, like big money signing, and then a big money signing on a. I don't think Eze and Wharton is a possibility. I think only one of them.
Too difficult.
I don't even know if any of them leave Palace. And again, it's unrealistic, but that's what I'm expecting right now as I sit here at the beginning of the transfer window, day 2 of the proper transfer window being open. I'm expecting 2 big signings and 2 smart signings in those positions. What about you?
I agree. Yeah, I agree. How do you feel about someone like João Paulinho as a defensive midfielder?
I wouldn't mind that. I really wouldn't mind that for the time being, and gaining, because I do think our team is crying out for a progressive passer,
especially if Romero goes. I think that's the big thing. I think if Romero was to go, I think it has a bit of a knock-on effect of not just who we replace him with as a defender, but then the type of midfielder that we go after as well. Because if Romero stays, there's an argument to say, other than bringing in the backup for Van der Ven, like maybe hybrid player, which is I think what we all want, and maybe sell Dragusin potentially. Yeah. Like you don't need to bring in another defender, but what you do, and then that kind of means that midfield profile should probably be more of just a classic 6, just as someone that's going to break the play up and win the ball back and give it to the better player, like someone who just like a Paulinho. Like Paulinho was a good progressor, but I think if we were to lose Romero, you don't necessarily have to. It's hard to go out and buy a like for like unless you invested your stocks in someone like Van Hecker, for example, who is really good at progressing the ball through the lines, but you might be a bit worried about him in other aspects. Yeah. You're almost better off just bringing a top class defender and then trying to buy a midfield player that takes more of the responsibility in terms of progressing the ball. It's a bit like what we did with like we replaced
Moneyball sort of thing.
Exactly like Moneyball. Yeah, we replaced Kane with Maddison and Johnson. Like it's kind of like that. Like you don't always have to go out, and people will argue whether that was the right thing to do or not. It's not. Basically, the point is that it's not always as black and white as like lose striker must replace him with a striker. Like you kind of you can replace what he brings in other areas. And with Romero, the biggest thing that we're going to miss is his ball progression, not necessarily his defending. So so you have to. There are other defenders that can defend as well as Romero, but that's what you can't do. So then, how do you circumvent that and go around that? Do you then go and buy a midfielder who's far more of a deep line playmaker, progressive to play that ball quickly through the lines like Romero? Exactly like Moneyball, exactly like you said. So
I'm optimistic as well that Romero stays one more year anyways.
I think he actually might. I think it's all getting a bit overblown with all this shit, to be honest.
I think so. I think his price is just too expensive. Like I know Simeone's come out in the last couple of days as well saying like, oh, he's a great player, of course I'd want him. But you're not going to pay 70 mil for him unless PSG can't get Zabani and they just all of a sudden table a 70 mil bid for Romero.
Yeah.
I'm not actually too worried. I don't think he wants to play in Saudi. I think he wants to play for in La Liga. He's been talking about how Spain's probably the next move. I think it's a premeditated thing that he's going to go to Spain eventually. Yeah. But if he's given one more year, he obviously loves Spurs. He does love Spurs. There's no denying it. So giving him one more year, he'll be what, 27, 28? That's prime with the pace of the La Liga. He'll be there for another 5 years. His career is sorted, I think. And then, but it's about like bleeding through Vuskovic, seeing how he does, how he settles, and then maybe being like, okay, now we need to reassess and get another like top centre back in. But Romero for one more year, maybe give him the captaincy. We're going to talk about outgoings. I'm optimistic right now that like at the moment that he does stay. But Paulinho, I think this midfield needs some physicality and it needs a destroyer to sort of complement Bentancur, Sarr or Bergvall in that double pivot. And that's a smart. If we can get like Paulinho on a loan to buy or just buy him on a cheap. I mean,
because his stock's dwindled a buy because it's like he doesn't really suit the way that it was a weird buy because he doesn't really suit what company. Like they've got Pavlovic there who is mate. If we could get someone like Pavlovic, that'd be unbelievable. But I think with Paulinho, it's like when Bayern bought him and they tried to buy him at the start of the week, before company, nobody batted an eyelid because everyone was like, the guy's class. Even now, I don't know if is he 30.
Yeah,
20, 30. It's like if you can get him for like a couple of years, like even while he's still at his kind of best, like I don't think the Bayern thing should really put anyone kind of off. He just didn't really suit the way they kind of wanted to play. Nobody batted an eyelid at the price that he actually ended up going for, the price that he was supposedly going to go for. The quality of players still in there, and having that bit of experience, and also like this whole thing about the experience. It doesn't always need to be older players either. Like players who, I think like Eze is an experienced player. You know, like what he's done at Palace and what he's now won at Palace and all these kind of things. Like, and that experience grows within the group as well of what they've kind of been through. Like last season, like you kind of said at the start of the pod. So, even like Jarell Hato is experienced. I know he's 18, 19.
He's in Ajax, isn't he? So
yeah, and he's played. I think he played more minutes. So it was a stat I saw the other day. I'll try and find it quickly. I'm not saying like I think Jarell Hato would be an absolute no-brainer. I just think he's probably too good to come to us, to be honest.
Too expensive as well. Too sort of
let's have a look.
Well known.
Of all players from the European top 6 leagues born after the 1st of January 2003, Jarell Hato has made the most club minutes in all comps since the start of the season before last, so Ange's first season, 23-24, followed by Bellingham and Lamine Yamal. So he's played more minutes than those two players during that time. So, I agree. We just have to be smart. I think we have to be smart. We have to... I think there's a bit of a split at the moment in the fan base of like... There's like people saying we need to stop buying kids. That can't happen. But we also need to invest in experience and quality. There's got to be a balance to be struck because if you just abandon that philosophy of bringing in your Bergvalls, etc., you lose out on potential generational talent. So Spurs have got to keep their toe in that water 100%. Look at Chelsea. Look at the... we need to maybe be a bit smarter about... If we're going to continue bringing in more, we need to maybe be smarter about how we manage and develop them. But that's why, like... Maybe bring Westerlo in as a bit of a feeder club. Vuskovic and Devine have gone there. Like, bringing these other players and let them kind of go there. It's like, we need to be maybe a bit smarter, but we can't stop it. We can't stop doing it. But we need to balance it with experience and quality as well.
What do you reckon about the outgoings then? Because there's a few players where I just think, okay, let's just start with Son, because obviously we're getting reports saying that Son actually can't leave contractually. It's actually looking probably more likely that he will leave if you're going off like the feeling and the briefs that we keep getting from the club, from journalists saying that Son's more open than ever to leaving now. Spurs are happy to let him go more than ever now, but he's actually contractually binded to us to play. Is it Newcastle in South Korea? Like
3rd of August.
It's 3rd of August, so that will probably be a thing that's going to be delayed. Maybe similar to Kane, how he's probably there with the pre-season boys. Let's Frank sort of get embedded in has a big send off and then leaves like how Kane did, obviously in a much better way, just before the season starts. And it's sad with Son, but again, like I was saying with Postecoglou, it's like he gets to leave as the biggest legend ever. He did it, and he stuck around to lift that trophy. And I mean, I didn't like the way it was heading with Son this season. Last season,
no, it was a bit grim,
and the decline, but also I don't think the system got the best out of him. But he was always looked to as the experienced head in the team. That like he needed to step up when the team was getting battered basically week in week out, which is a little bit unfair on him. But it was just everyone was looking to him as that experienced player, and I just think if he is to leave, it's probably the best time to leave now before we see a further decline in him, where he gets to just leave as like an ultimate Tottenham legend and eventually build him a statue and give him the best farewell. And his last proper game was winning that trophy, finally getting it over the line. Mate, like it's just it's getting emotional now because he stopped.
Mate, when he grabbed the microphone at the parade and he was like, "I fucking love you," like we fucking did it and all this kind of stuff. I was like, it makes you think as well. I'm sorry, but Harry Kane would never do that.
Yeah,
like just add. Who was I talking about this to the other day? It's like there was another player that came out and said something that I was like, add him to the list of people that love Spurs more than Harry Kane. And I was like, mate, Sonny is a Walker. Yeah,
Walker. Yeah.
I don't know why City fans got their like pants in a twist about that. Like, he's 35, he's leaving in the summer. All right, yeah, he's your club captain and maybe could have waited until he'd left the club to say it, but he's won about 6 Premier Leagues with you. Like, saying I'd trade one for winning the Europa League with Spurs.
He's always loved Spurs as well. He's always talking about like how he hates Arsenal and stuff like that. It is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's the right time. Also, like, I saw a couple of people yesterday, because there's been the links to Fenerbahce, and saying they'd be prepared to pay like 30 million euros for him, or maybe it's 30 million quid, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Around that kind of ballpark figure. Like, people saying, oh no, I wouldn't take that. I would definitely take that. I think for a guy that's got 1 year left in his contract, it sounds like from the news reports that are coming out this afternoon, or come out sort of late this morning, talking about the friendly and that he's contractually obliged to pay in it. At first, you kind of, when I was first reading that, I was kind of like, that's a bit frustrating, because I feel like we want to get our ducks in a row, and if these players are going to go, like Romero or Son, I think we need to know ASAP and then plan forward from that. But I suppose, as long as like you can maybe get a deal lined up and say, look, he actually just can't join until we do this. He's going to leave. He's going to get a proper send off, and then he can come to you. Like maybe I don't think we're playing a pre-season game actually at home, which is slightly frustrating. So he won't get like a send off at White Hart Lane. Maybe in the Super Cup, he'd win that and then go. Maybe, who knows? But I think it's kind of also like classic Tottenham as well. Like, you have to play in this game because we've like. It's in Korea, it's like contractually. Like, yeah. We'll milk the cash cow like one more time. I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, me too,
But I do think for £30 million or 30 million euros for a guy that's got 1 year left on his deal, and that's what I was going to say. So from the news reports that kind of came out this morning, one thing that sort of started to become a little bit clear from one of the articles that I read was almost like the reason that Spurs kind of triggered that option was because they would get a fee for him. They kind of knew this was going to happen. It wasn't a case of like I think I've read an article. Okay. I've read someone wrote something like that, and it was almost. And Son turned down that Saudi approach, didn't he, a couple of years ago as well? That was. I'm pretty sure. I'm not making this up. I'm pretty sure I read.
Well, there's a couple that came out with Sammy Mockbell and Gary Jacob today, just today about it. And
Gary Jacob, that was it. I'm sure he said about. This was it. Tottenham exercised the option to extend Son Heung Min's contract until 2026 in January and had wanted him to commit himself to a longer deal, largely owing to his commercial value, but he refused. They settled on a 1-year contract extension to avoid losing him for free.
Oh, okay.
So they basically did it so they would get a fee for him.
Yeah. So the thing is, even if he makes that speech in South Korea, think of the reception. And like,
yeah, true.
Unless he has just an interview where that sort of emotional goodbye, it is what it is. But I just do see him leaving, and if he leaves, he gets to sort of go out as the hero and a legend. And I mean, no doubt that a statue of him will be built. He's given his whole career.
Oh mate, he deserves it.
Finally got
he absolutely deserves it. I think it's got to be Bill Nick first, and then I think Sonny. Sonny has immortalised himself as an absolute fucking legend of this football club who stayed when others looked to go and committed himself to the club, and he's just an absolute. Turned up as just like
a shy boy, and left as the leader.
Who was going to go the year after? He was going to go back to Germany, wasn't he? Apparently going back to he was going to go to Wolfsburg, wasn't he, that summer? And then Poch kind of said, no, you're going to stay, and I'm going to. Mate, Son's an absolute legend, and I think it would be if he ends up staying. I don't really mind it, but I also do think if we're going to bring in this attacker, especially if it's going to be like those wages being freed up. Again, this is not me. What's the word? Like sticking up for Levy and the club and the way they operate. I'm just being realistic about how Spurs operate, and I think if Spurs do want to make that as a kind of sign-in, I think those Sonny wages might have to get freed up. To be honest, to do that, and also to be honest, in terms of squad planning, it makes sense. I do think that. And again, it's like Kalimwendo comes in, Richarlison goes out, 1 for 1. I think, mate, absolutely. Oh, let's put
you're making a good point.
I'm going to put purple and gold in my Twitter bio now to make sure that doesn't run.
Just to make sure.
Yeah, I'm such a Levy lover, man. It's so funny.
Good point.
Yeah, I just think that's just being a bit realistic. I think that's probably has to happen to enable that sort of signing. Not that Spurs don't have the money to do it, because we all know we fucking do. But yeah,
that sort of
thing,
man. I think it makes sense because also you're like, say Eze comes in homegrown, that wages is opened up, he becomes the face, that smiley face of the club. Like there's loads of things of like it's almost like passing on the mantle to someone like him because there's loads of debates of like who becomes the face of Spurs when Son leaves. I mean, who knows? They might not even be at the club yet, but could have that same sort of influence as Son does in the dressing room. But with Outgoings, do you think Bissouma, Richarlison, they're gone? I think
I think so. I think obviously with Bentancur and Bissouma both having 1 year left, 1 year left on both their deals, I think you can only kind of re-sign one of them, and it sounds like that's going to already happen with Bentancur. So I think Bissouma probably has to go, try and get a decent fee for him. Richarlison, it's a shame again, because I think actually under Frank, having that kind of alternative profile of striker would work quite nicely. But I think you've got to go for someone that's fitter, younger, more mobile, and I think that's why swapping Richarlison, trying to get some decent money, putting that towards signing Kalimwendo makes sense, in my opinion. Who's going to take the gamble on Richie? He's already said that he doesn't want Saudi, which is frustrating. A bit like Darwin Núñez. Like Liverpool fans are just like, please! Like, don't get me wrong, I love Richie, but I thought he worked his bollocks off in that final and was good. Like, he was good. And in the semi-finals as well, like playing out on that left-hand side, I thought it was good, but I just think it's time to move on now. Try and get as much money back as you can. We're going to take a big hit on him. We know that. It is what it is. But, yeah, I think Bissouma, Richarlison, Ben Davies is an interesting one as well. Maybe have they just extended that option so they can get him some money for him? Either way, I'm not that bothered. Like, I think it's time to move on, but at the same time, you don't have to register him in the Champions League squad. I think having him around the place probably isn't the worst thing in the world for another year.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really hate that. I think it's probably the right thing to do, try and get some money.
Yeah.
Ben Mee, yeah. So I don't hate it really. I think people are just pissing their pants a little bit about Davies too much and kind of, I don't know. Like, we don't have to pick him for the Champions League. We probably won't. Well, I hope we don't anyway.
No, yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah. I think that's probably it, to be honest, for Outgoings.
Yeah, I'm not really. I think our squad is almost there. We just need a couple of game changers, and that's why we're so desperate to be there. And
maybe some loans for some of the other younger players as well, because it is a bit bloated. Like when all those players come back, like Abbott, another loan for Donnelly, I think, as well. Make the step up to the Championship. Maybe Mason takes a couple with him, potentially.
Yang.
George Abbott did really well in League One, so I think maybe a step up. Or was it in League Two, Notts County?
I don't know. Yang,
but a step up
Divine.
for him, I think, would be good. Yeah. Divine, yeah. Yang, I think, you can't see Yang playing any part next season. So, yeah, get these good development loans for a lot of these kids.
What's good with Marky Moore?
I wouldn't be that against giving him a loan, to be honest. But I also, again, happy for him to stay. Happy for him to stay around. Yeah. But interesting to see, has anything else been said about that injury?
Oh, I don't really know. Oh, yeah, I saw that. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, hopefully
it's not a bad one.
Yeah, I do think if he does get a Championship loan, it absolutely rips it apart. Even if it's like 6 months and then maybe gets a... I just think he needs game time, Mikey Moore. He was another one that just wasn't getting game time last year, and who knows, will he fit Frank's system? I think Frank could definitely get the best out of him, but just because he's so good.
He'd be licking his lips looking at like young... But it's like young meat, like that, as we said before. As we said on the pod before, famously. Yeah. He'll be looking at young talent like that and just like, yeah.
So finally, mate, what is the expectation? If we go back to Matt Sapala, he says, with Frank coming in, what do you think are fair expectations right now? For me, I would say qualification for Europa, either through League Cup, League Table or the FA Cup. Or someone says, what do you think Frank has to do this season to be considered a success? D on Twitter says that. Go on, mate, you take it away because I'm not.
It's a difficult question, isn't it? Because I think Frank's sort of in between a rock and a hard place a little bit because people are going to be really expecting us to go and win another trophy now because we've made, especially the people that didn't want Ange to go. I think there's been a lot of people, to be fair, I don't think that will happen now. I think there's a lot of people that actually, now the dust has settled, have really come round to Frank and are actually probably won't pile the pressure on him as much as they would have done if we'd have gone out of the Cups at some point. Obviously, we don't want that to happen, and that shouldn't happen. And Tottenham and Frank should put big attention and focus on winning another Cup to build off the back of that momentum. But I think getting us back in and around the European places, Champions League is going to be really difficult. I think as long as we don't embarrass ourselves, try and get through to the knockout stage, I think would be really good. And we can do that. 100% can do that. 1,000,000%. And then take it from there. I think, Champions League, get to the knockouts and take it from there. We want to be, I mean, Levy said in that YouTube thing they've put out that Spurs want to win the Champions League and maybe stop paying some wages that would be competitive enough to do that. But I appreciate the ambition. But so that's not going to happen this season. But I think getting back in and around the European places, like Europa League, 6th place finish, and then hopefully try and win a cup. That'd be my expectations going into the season. If he doesn't do that, I'm not going to piss the bed because again, this is he needs time, of course, 100% needs time. I just don't want it to get to like an animosity kind of point where people are going like we shouldn't have sacked Ange and all this kind of stuff. Like, because I guarantee those same people when we get into October when we're doing shit under Postecoglou said we should have sacked him. Or like, why did we? So, you can't win. Frank's kind of in an impossible position, but I hope people just kind of give him the time. And to be fair, like I said, I do think that animosity that was there towards it and going like, there's real pressure on him now. I think that's kind of fading. I think people are coming around to it a bit. So, But what do you reckon?
I just want to see game-to-game adaptations. This season again, it's like an extra year of development for the young players because they are still so young. A lot of them are still teenagers, so it's like learning game-to-game tactical adaptations. Say we go and blow a team away like 4 or 5-0, and then have to go to the Emirates or to the Etihad and try and grind up with like a back five or something, try and grind out a win, or do you know what I mean? Something like that. Just adapting game to game. I want to see that more, and also you build on and because obviously it was so toxic last year. There was such a disattachment from or detached feel between the fans, players, manager. Until we won the Europa League, and there was just like complete unison, absolute love for everyone, each player, everyone's like, it's such a good feel at the moment. Obviously, Ange is gone now, but just maybe a continuation of that, and maybe even like an increased sort of bond between players, fans, and managers. And I know Vinny, is it Vinny? What's his name?
Yeah, Vinay. He apparently came across really well in that interview. Yeah. I'm going to watch it after this, and we can maybe react to it in the next one.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've heard you talk about it on the lab and stuff like that, about how he really has an emphasis on building a connection with the fan base. And Frank, I mean, we've heard about it so many times on the lab, on the Fighting Cock, with interviews Flav's done with Brentford fans, of how Frank would always do a lap of honour every single game, every win, and try and build. He knows the importance of building a connection between the fans. So I just want to see hope in the fact that we're going somewhere, and I don't really want to put a ceiling or an expectation on it, and I also don't want to get bent over and absolute dick slapped in the Super Cup. Just don't lose 5-0.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And then I
was looking at PSG against Bayern against Atletico the other day. I was like thinking, oh fuck, if they're getting done in by them like that. I know the Club World Cup is a glorified pre-season tournament, but
I was also looking at Longley.
That could be
pulled down his toes, and I was like,
how has this bloke still got a career at that level? Why do people keep signing him? I don't understand it.
He's so good. Every single club.
He's got Choupo-Moting's agent. Yeah. He's got Choupo-Moting's agent.
Yeah, he's so bad, and that's the thing. They haven't come up against Romero Van der Ven, PSG yet.
Exactly.
So maybe we'll only lose about 4-0.
Or Vuskovic.
Or Vuskovic, mate. Mate, imagine if he is actually ready. I'm just excited for pre-season, and then we can sort of assess what our expectations are after the summer window and the pre-season, because it's painful every time you go in with like high expectations and we're let down in the window. Or do you know what I mean? Like last year, we were looking at all the things we needed and established a proper winger, like we are now, and we were going into the season being like, I don't know if he's been backed Ange here. I don't know if it's enough, and then I mean obviously it turned out it wasn't enough. But
I also do think that bringing in a manager like Frank, one thing that was slightly irritating. Sorry, just to finish, like before we finish, one thing that was slightly irritating me was like, because Frank is Frank will always see Brentford to Tottenham as a step up. Going to Tottenham from Brentford as a step up, regardless of how shit we were last season, right? But one thing that was slightly annoying me in the argument to keep Ange was that, well, if it does go tits up, Frank is like a manager that is attainable at any time for Tottenham. I was like, yeah, but he needs time to, like, if you're going to make the change, if that's in the back of your mind, you're much better off than doing it now and giving him a pre-season to instill his ideas. He's very methodical and detailed on the training pitch. It's like, okay, yeah, there'll probably be a new manager bounce, but you're much better off just getting him in the summer before you kind of do irreversible damage. You know, it's like, and look, one thing Levy did say was, he said about Ange, he said, I've got an excellent relationship with him. I told him, you're always going to be a part of our history. He and his family are always welcome back. It was a collective decision. It wasn't my decision. I think he's talking about solely. Emotionally, it was very difficult, but we believe we've made the right decision for the club. And as much as there's some other stuff, some of the quotes I've been reading while we've been talking on here, it's just a bit like, fucking shut up, mate.
PR.
I think we have made the right decision. And I think to move forward now into this new era, but it's the start of a new chapter, I think, rather than a new era, because I think it's a good continuation from what we were kind of building towards, and I think Frank is the perfect manager to do that, and I think we're going to win the treble.
Yeah. I think we should end it there. I think perfect.
Great to be back.
We got mate. Thank you. It's been unbelievable. It's after this chatting to you, and
mate, same.
It just feels right. We got Elijah actually, who sent a comment in and saying what you planned for Darren doing. We got big plans coming up. That will come soon, I think. There's definitely some changes and it's exciting. So everyone, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, or follow, and just get involved. Send it to a friend that you think might enjoy the pod, and it's just so good to be back. Thank you so much for the messages, the comments, the questions, and being a part of the community. Ben, you played inside tonight?
Yeah, mate. Gonna score a hat trick. It's been very hot though. It's very hot. I'm a bit worried. So make sure to get the electrolytes in and get the water in.
Yeah, a bit of Lucozade, you'll be
fine.
Of course.
Of course.
You know when you I feel like we all do it. You'll just have a player in your mind that you're gonna beat tonight when you play football. I've got a six-a-side tonight, and in my head I'm just gonna be Arnold Calamuendo, mate.
Running in behind, being a little nippy. Gets shots off quickly.
I'm going to watch the compilation now. Just get pumped up.
Yeah.
And score, and maybe score a goal. We'll have to see.
Come on.
If I can. Legend Ben. Oh fuck! I've spent the whole time without having a fucking voice break.
Did your voice even break then? I didn't even notice it.
Did. Oh, did you not?
Did it? No. You're fine, mate.
Legend, mate. Catch you later.
All the best. Up Spurs.
Up the Spurs.